Hey guys, boy M.K.S here. Hope everyone's well. Nearly 11 o'clock here in the UK, but thought I'd make another video. In this series of videos, I talk about a list of my ideas for economically empowering people from Asia in terms of enterprise and things like that. So I hope you'll enjoy the list, and if you're Asian or of Asian background, I hope you'll like the video and share it with others, especially from Asia. So hopefully I can get as many views as possible, and hope someone out there, or at least as many people as possible, will like it. Anyway, here goes my list. If anyone asks me any questions on topic, I'll try and answer them. But anyway, point number 21. Again, if you haven't checked out part 1 and part 2, please do. Point 21. I hope to look at the history of Asian economies. Apparently, like India, for instance, when it was India and possibly other countries like China and other countries across Asia and Africa, and even Ireland as well. And India and Ireland have quite a lot in common. I know Ireland's obviously not in Asia, but when they became independent, they were shut off from the rest of the world because of they wanted to become independent, I think. So they didn't trade with anyone else except for the Soviet Union. And unfortunately, when the Soviet Union went bust, India's economy went bust. But apparently, India's economy was the top economy in the world. At some point, China's was as well. So in a way, how the economy is going now, it's almost like going back to how it was, resetting to how it was, if it goes that way. So if India and China do become the economic powers that people say they will be, it's really just going back to, and I think there's a biblical teaching about things going back to the way they were before, something like that. So it seems like that's the way things are going. So people say that India's economy was 23% of the world's GDP. That's disputed, but that's what I've heard. And when they became independent, the economy went down to about 4 or 5% of the world's GDP. And also, I mean, John Bobbitt's saying it's lies, all lies or fraud or whatever, and deception. This is what I've heard, so I don't know how true it is, but that's what he said. A lot of wealth was taken out, and so like India's economy went down, but so they only wanted to trade with Russia, with the Soviet Union, which has always been kind to India, but obviously their economy went downhill. So if your main trading partner goes downhill, obviously your economy is going to struggle. And I think Ireland and other countries had the same problem. Again, I know Ireland's not in Asia, but other Asian nations as well also had the same problem. So I think it's interesting to see how Asian economies are going back to how they were before. But yeah, so, and I've seen in like YouTube videos and things like that about business that people shouldn't read so much or watch so much about success stories, but more about the failures, so that not so that you necessarily can learn how to avoid such mistakes or whatever, but so that you can learn how to deal with them, because everyone who sets up a business will at some point apparently have some sort of problem. Unfortunately, obviously there's a lot of challenges to set up a business, but that's part of the challenge of it. So if you thrive on challenges, obviously, setting up a business is probably quite rewarding, because for a lot of people say it's freedom and stuff like that. So and if you love, as I say, if you love being challenged, that has its own advantages. But anyway, so I thought that's quite interesting what I've heard about the history of India, and I'm sure China's is a similar one. I've heard Ireland's situation was similar as well. John Bobbitt tells about mathematics, mathematicians. I don't know what that means. But yeah, so I think it'll be great for people from Asia to learn about mistakes and how to avoid those mistakes, and how to, or even not necessarily to avoid them, but how, if business is struggling, that most people who started a business struggle at some point, so that hopefully that can keep them motivated over time, and it also can help them to avoid some of the mistakes perhaps as well. Which I think would be good rather than making them yourself. You can learn from other people's mistakes, which means you don't have to spend the money and the time in doing so. 22, I hope to look at how Asian nations can learn from those mistakes again and look towards being financially empowered in the future, economically empowered and things like that, in terms of enterprise. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, and in the future, like how to build their tourism sectors or rebuild their tourism sectors and things like that. Excuse me. 23, I hope to do as much fundraising as possible, and again send like things like art material and things like that, and to parts of Asia, especially poor parts of Asia, and towards slums and orphanages, as I mentioned before, and especially for special schools or schools for people with learning disabilities like dyslexia and ADHD, autism, and things like that, to help them to become empowered and possibly give them, if I can, possibly give them training materials to help them develop skills, like especially in enterprise and things like that. And again, as I mentioned before, if I could send direct debits to Asia as well, so that as much as possible, I'd send as much send as much money as possible, funding as possible, so that they can use that to invest or things like that. 24, again, hoped for Asian nations to work more closely together and possibly work with other countries that were colonized and things like that, as much of Asia as possible, to network together. And I think if they work together, I think they'll be much stronger. And obviously, they're 60% of they say about 60% of the world's population lives in Asia. So, and also from the diaspora and people of color supporting each other, I think a problem shared is a problem halved. So if 1 billion people work, or like even more than 1 billion, 2 or 3 billion people work together, or 60% of the world's population will be about something like 4 billion people or so, approximately, working together to solve problems. I think hopefully they could do a lot better in the future. 25, I specifically hope to support Asia's republics as much as possible, republics in Asia. Like for instance, I'd love to support all Asian nations, but countries like China and India, which are republics, I probably want to support more than countries like Thailand, which are monarchies, I believe. So yeah, I'd love to support republics more. 26, I know I've talked before about how I think it's economic justice to support Asia because they were colonized, and in my opinion, that means they were robbed. So obviously I'm going to want to support them more, and I hope to support countries like Iraq. Like if I get enough YouTube views, or if I could find some ways to fundraise or share ideas, I'd love to fund projects in Iraq, especially like building homes and centers where they can support enterprise, and also like areas where they can get training, de-radicalization and things like that, to empower the economy because they were colonized or invaded or whatever you call it. 27, I hope to support like to reward any sponsors or general supporters, like by helping them with their PR. I know I talked a lot about that before, but I just thought I'd re-mention that point. 28, once again, I love to support my fellow dyslexics in Asia. 29, I hope to encourage as many people from the diaspora and also like mixed race, like especially part Asians like myself, supporting Asia, and people of color to support Asian nations as much as possible. And 30, I'd love to hear other people's ideas, and hopefully through discussing these ideas, maybe people it will help to make people think, and maybe more people can share suggestions and ideas about how to financially empower Asia. So, sorry, yeah, I hope this video wasn't too bad. I was a bit nervous, but hopefully didn't do too bad a job. And again, I hope people from across Asia will see this video, and people who are interested in supporting Asia or finding out about Asia as well. Maybe those who are interested in the culture as well will support this project. Anyway, I think I've waffled enough, so peace and love wherever you are.